Were you ever a fan of the Nasty Boys? No, neither was I, but I think I might be now. In February 2007, Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer that Brian Knobbs, that's the one who's Hogan's mate by the way, just finished filming a pilot for a show called Trailer Court Justice, where he'll play a Judge Mathis type character with a low rent clientele. They're shopping the pilot around right now, as he said at the time.
Alright! Let's get started!
What's the problem? Thank you, Your Honor. I'm here today because this man, who I thought was my friend and neighbor, he's been stealing my propane gas when I ain't looking.
As best I could tell, Trailer Court Justice never actually made it to air. But by God, I wish it did. I know this is a weird thing to talk about, by the way, but this channel is, if nothing else, like a box of chocolates. The only proof I could actually find of this show existing was a sizzle reel, likely made using footage filmed for the pilot episode, that's still available on YouTube. The reel includes Knobbs wearing what appears to be a bin liner, presiding over some rather odd individuals. In case you're wondering, all of this, as noted by Dave Meltzer, was completely scripted, and the plaintiffs and defendants were played by actors, with all of them having other acting credits on IMDb. While I'm mostly being quite sarcastic, as a kid who grew up in the age of car crash TV like the Jerry Springer Show, part of me wants to see what that final product would have actually looked like.
What's the problem?
Problem, Judge, is that she's blocking my son.
I don't even think it's sunbathing that she's doing.
Do you have any evidence to prove that?
I am as white as I can be.
Okay. Defendant, your snake.
His snake ate my little chihuahua.
Sir, do you think you can go bring your snake over and plug her holes?
Yeah, I guess.
Case closed!
The end of the reel shows two noteworthy cameos, one, unsurprisingly, being Brian's mate Terry, and the other being, of all people, Willie Nelson, who I assume was doing a favour for someone involved in the show. Willie's segment seems to imply that he would have some sort of a recurring role in the show, implying he would act as some sort of mentor to Judge Knobbs, but sadly we'll never know. He is, however, credited as a composer for the show. Trailer Court Justice also has one more tenuous wrestling connection. You might have noticed the bailiff in the footage I've used. That's Tammy Sheffield, who's credited as both the on-screen bailiff and as a producer for the show. Tammy herself also has a wrestling link, as in the early 2000s she would wrestle a handful of matches for Women of Wrestling as Sandy, one half of the Beach Patrol tag team. In the Observer reporting, Dave also notes that Knobbs wasn't the original choice for the role. Rather, one Hacksaw Jim Duggan was. In 2006, Jim had a 2-year-long final run with WWE, and worked a pretty much full-time schedule until his release in 2008. This had made him unavailable for the courtroom show. Both are interesting choices for a southern-themed court show though, with Knobbs originally from Pennsylvania and Duggan from New York, those famous southern states. Knobbs also seems to have a long history with the show's creator, Fred Young. Though Fred's official biography has barely any mention of wrestling, one of his early credits is as a producer on a documentary called The Unreal Story of Pro Wrestling, which was released in 1999 and included interviews with many top wrestlers of the time, even crossing promotion boundaries, from WCW's Ric Flair to WWE's Steve Austin. But perhaps crucially, Hulk Hogan. Fred Young also has a few other links to Brian Knobbs. One of his early credits is as an executive producer for the XWF, one of many attempts to fill the void left by WCW and ECW closing in the early 2000s. Knobbs would wrestle for the XWF, and host the later released DVD set of shows that never aired on television. Much later though, in 2021, Brian would undergo some health issues, and Fred would be the one to start a GoFundMe that would successfully raise $20,000 towards his medical expenses. By 2007, when Dave reported on the show being shopped around, Brian Knobbs hadn't been an active wrestler for a few years. He enjoyed a singles run near the end of WCW, where he would become a 2-time hardcore champion, but would barely wrestle post-2001. In a match that feels like an odd generational clash, Knobbs would reunite with his Nasty Boys tag partner, Jerry Sags, to wrestle a dark match at a SmackDown taping in Tampa, Florida in November 2007. Knobbs and Saggs would defeat Dave Taylor and Drew McIntyre in the non-televised bout. Drew, by the way, was just 1 month into his main roster run, having debuted on SmackDown on October 12, 2007. Brian Alvarez in his Figure 4 weekly newsletter described the match as a disaster. According to Brian, they took so long getting in the ring that the SmackDown show had to be rushed to make sure they could switch everything over for the live ECW show at 10. They made it, but only had about 10 minutes to do so. This is referring to WWE's ECW show that aired live at 10 PM following the SmackDown tapings. The match, with Drew McIntyre and Dave Taylor, was horrible, with both Knobbs and Saggs working stiff with both guys. In a 2019 interview with Hannibal TV, Knobbs denies working stiff, but does seem to confirm that they took too long to get to the ring, saying, "We were in our hometown, people were cheering us, you're gonna go around and say hello to the fans, and we still got our match in." Brian Knobbs would later wrestle semi-actively through the 2010s, with his final match to date taking place in 2019. Imagine if Trailer Court Justice had taken off though. Brian, using the Judge Nasty gimmick, could have passed judgment in the ring for many more years. I bet the matches would have been shite though. Thank you for watching yet another wrestling channel. If you enjoyed this, please consider leaving a like or a comment or even subscribing.